Hello, it's late morning in late September and I've returned to podcasting after a few months layoff over the summer. It's a blustery day with heavy rain showers forecast for later. I've started today near Hetchell Woods on the outskirts of Leeds and I'm going to walk to the outskirts of the Harewood Estate. I'm doing the fourth section of the Leeds Country Way, which I began earlier in the year in Garforth. It's not a bad day today, it's quite blustery and forecast heavy rain for later, but it's quite pleasant at the moment. I'm picking my way down through the woods towards the village of Bardsey. I've got about a 7 or 8 mile circular walk planned today that'll take me across the lanes and footpaths to the outskirts of the Harewood Estate. And for part of the walk today I'll be following the Leeds Country Way, which, as you may remember, I started earlier in the year at Garforth. It's a circular walk around the outskirts of the city of Leeds, and I'm doing it in short sections. First did it about 30 years ago over 4 days. This is going to probably take about 10 or 15 visits, as I'm only covering about 5 miles of the actual way each time I come out. So far though, the rain's holding off and it's quite a nice late morning, early afternoon, about 12 degrees. The ground underfoot though is treacherous. We've had so little rain this year, and then we've had rain in the last couple of days, and the footpaths, as I've already discovered, are very greasy. If you've listened to earlier episodes of the podcast, you'll probably know that I did have high hopes of it being weekly and me rejuvenating my love of walking that I've had all my life by going further afield than the local walks that I'd been doing. Unfortunately this summer I got bogged down with work and various other things and it fell by the wayside. So here I am in the early autumn. Life's much quieter and I hope I can pick up where I left off with some fairly frequent walks to lots of new places. The autumn colours are just beginning to show in the trees and hedgerows. And the woodland today is very dark. I think high above those rain clouds are drawing closer. I've dropped down now from Hetchell Woods and I'm approaching the A58, the main leads to Weatherby Road, and I'll cross that by the church. I'll pick up the Leeds Country Way again as I climb up the hill out of the village, looking for a path that take me back into open countryside. It is hard to believe, walking on a pleasant autumnal day like this, that we had the summer that we did. Those 40 degree plus temperatures and week after week of plus 30. Very unusual weather for the north of England. And I know the serious state of things for the world, but at least on a day like today, walking through an English woodland in early autumn with the rain just starting to fall, things do feel as if they've gone back to normal somewhat. I've reached All Hallows Church in Bardsey. I'm now back at the Leeds Country Way, so I'll pick up my route from where I left off last time. It's got a lovely lich gate at the entrance to the church. I decided to stop and have lunch in there because I think it might be the only place I'm going to get shelter for the rest of the day, as the rain is now pouring down. So I'm going to have lunch and then head off to finish the walk. This is one of the oldest churches in Yorkshire. I think parts of it date back to the Anglo-Saxon era. I've never been in yet. There was a funeral last time, and today I think I'd be as well just to get on and get finished and get home for a nice mug of tea. It's very peaceful though, apart from the occasional passing car. The rain seems to be coming, well, all directions, straight down for a moment until the wind catches it, and it's making that gentle pattering sound on the leaves on the trees. I think 3 months sitting behind a desk at work has probably done wonders for my customer service skills, but very little for my direction finding skills or my fitness, as I'm finding out. I trudged all the way to the top of a hill in Bardsey, only to realise that I needed to go all the way back down. In the process I passed the Bingley Arms pub twice, with a sign on the gate to say it's the oldest inn in England, and that it's in the Guinness Book of Records. I've passed through Bardsey now, which is quite built up, but I've just climbed a stile and come out into a beautiful area by the side of, I think it's called Gilbeck. I looked on the map. It's a meadow type area of now fading grass and flowers leading down to the tree lined water's edge. On my right is a barbed wire fence and a pasture field at the other side. This is quite delightful though, even on a rain-soaked day like today. I really don't mind walking in the rain. Some fabulous walks when the weather's been like this. It's just literally been so long this year that it's taken a little bit of getting used to once again. Anyhow, I'm through Bardsey, and I think the path is now through the fields to basically to the edge of Harewood Estate, where I turn round and come back. The area to my left is a lovely wooded valley, mature oak and beech. The oak is still fully green in its summer coat, but the beech is already turning that beautiful golden colour we see later in the autumn. I'm actually standing under an oak tree now, looking at this field that would have been a meadow. The little valley is on the left hand side, and there's a meadow on the right with all the flowers and grasses gone to seed. The rain is falling somewhere between steady and quite heavy. But it's not so cold. I do wish my car wasn't quite so far away though. Anyhow, onwards and upwards, because I think there's a country road a little way ahead. Coming out of the field onto the road is a very strange little loop of the Leeds Country Way. It heads back on a very busy road, actually back towards Bardsey, but there's a very sharp left after about half a mile of hair-raising walking. And that path is lovely. It's fields at either side, a hedge at either side with ferns, and a broad valley dropping down to the right and then up, and the village of East Keswick just slightly behind me. I'm heading now in the direction of Harewood, and the Wharf Valley is just over the next ridge to the right. But I think, as I said right at the beginning, the Leeds Country Way is never more than 6 or 7 miles from City Square in the centre of Leeds. And now, with Bardsey behind me, this northern section is beautiful. It's all rural, for many miles to come, and lovely countryside it is too. It's still raining. This section of path I've just walked on is really nice. It started out as a fairly broad track, and in places became a metal track for farms and houses along the way, but then every so often you cut away from that and it's proper little lanes between trees and hedges, and I imagine on a summer's day it'd be delightful. I've just had a very steep climb up the valley side and going down again now, I think towards the road, but this is lovely. There's mature trees above me and I'm not actually feeling the rain for a moment, as I've got a nice canopy above me. I think one of my lasting memories of today's walk will be crab apples and acorns. Every time you get a tight little path amongst the trees, it's just covered in either acorns, crab apples or both, and they're quite treacherous if you're walking downhill. It's like walking on marbles. I don't think I'm actually going to make it as far as the edge of the Harewood Estate today. My level of fitness is not what it should be after a summer of work, and the weather is pretty dire. So I'm of an age where my body tells me it's time to turn back, as I've still got as far to go back as I have coming here. So I think first chance I get, which I think is down on the road, I'll be heading back towards Scarcroft on the way back, and then to Hetchell Woods. This has been lovely though, despite the weather. I think my philosophy these days is simply little and often. I'll get the Leeds Country Way done, whether it's on 10 visits or 30 visits. The main purpose of this exercise is being out. Anyhow, I'll have to put the microphone away again before it goes kaput with the rain. From the track that I was on, I came out on a road. I think the Leeds Country Way continues to the right and then heads into the countryside again. I did, as I said, decide to turn back because I had a fair way to get back and the weather's not letting up. I walked down the road a few hundred yards and then down a little lane that takes you down to a ford that only had a few inches of water. Coming up the other side, the hill, out of all proportion to the hills round here, it was so steep and so long, and quite dishearteningly it brought me back out into Bardsey when I got to the top of it. I turned left down the road, past some houses and then onto a broad path. On the right is a tall hedge, on the left fields, looking across to the hills towards Bramham and towards Wetherby, and it's like being in the mountains in a way with the weather. The rain and the mist is shrouding the hills even though they're only a few 100 feet high. I've sought shelter under an oak tree, and they do provide shelter from the rain and the sun, as I found in the summer. And this one's lovely. It's got a holly tree growing all around the base of it, and the holly's got berries on. Anyway, I think this track takes me over towards Scarcroft. It's just an alternative route to get back to Hetchell Woods. There's a couple of tracks that go through fields, a little bit more walking past houses, and then I come back to the A58 and back up to Hetchell Woods. When you're out of the rain, it's lovely. It really is. The lovely path I was on that had the nice hedge on the right hand side also had lots of new trees planted on both sides. Turns out that the left hand side was Scarcroft Golf Club. But the paths are pleasant round here. It is built up, but it is nice ways to link the villages. You could live round here and walk from village to village and never use a road. I came out on a road in Scarcroft, not really got any idea where I was, but a few 100 yards further down there's a lovely little lane. I think there might be a stream at the bottom of this valley to my right. Very lush, quite mature trees. This takes me, I know this from the map, down out of Scarcroft, almost back into Bardsey, across the A58, pick up the old railway line that used to run from Leeds to Wetherby, and that takes me through Hetchell Woods and back to my start point. I haven't got much of the Leeds Country Way done today, probably 2 or 3 miles at the most, but it's been a fascinating walk for me. I've never walked in this area really, and it kind of puts into perspective all these big areas of luxury housing, but they are still linked by lovely open countryside. The path now strewn with conkers, horse chestnuts. This autumn really is a time of plenty. This is a delightful little path, not at all what I thought it would be like from looking on the map. It often happens, I am and I think, oh, shall I go that way, I shan't go that way, and reluctantly do, and then often find myself walking the same paths again time and time. The path's opened up now and I can see the road a little way ahead. I've crossed the A58 now and I'm heading through the fields to a ford, and the old railway line from Leeds to Wetherby crosses. In the distance, maybe a quarter of a mile, half a mile, I can see the hillside that Hetchell Woods is set on. In the woods are the crags, and also in there on the almost on the ridge is an ancient Roman fort. I think it's called Pompa Carli, without getting my map out in this atrocious weather. But I work with a guy, and whenever we talk about walking, we always seem to get onto the Dales and then Ingleborough, and he always brings up the fact that there was a Roman signal station on top, and he wonders what life must have been like for those people 2,000 years ago living on Ingleborough. But I mean, now the weather is, hope you can hear it, driving rain. It's still not so cold, it's maybe 10 degrees, 11 degrees, but the wind is blowing from the west, the southwest, and the rain is horizontal as it comes across this hillside. So I don't just wonder what life must have been like for Roman soldiers living on Ingleborough or Hadrian's Wall. I doubt this was much. I doubt this was much better. I'm on the final leg now, walking on a public footpath on the edge of Hetchell Woods. I've just noticed a sign from the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust: ash dieback in our reserves. You may have noticed that many of our trees are not looking very healthy, are dead or have been removed or cut down. Sadly, this is due to the presence of a devastating fungus known as ash dieback, which is spreading quickly throughout the UK. It is estimated that it will lead to the loss of up to 99% of our native ash. Ash dieback causes branches and eventually whole trees to die, making them unsafe. So we are working to remove any trees that pose a risk to public safety. However, where possible, we are leaving many affected ash in place, as dead wood provides a brilliant habitat for all sorts of life, and in case the tree has any tolerance to the fungus. Although it is sad to lose so many of our ash trees, our woodlands will recover with our help. I'm almost back at my start point now, drenched and ready for a cup of tea. So this seems like a good place to end this podcast, which I have thoroughly enjoyed making. And hopefully, as I maybe said at the beginning, I now have the autumn, winter and spring with quite a bit more free time. So hopefully should get back on track. Not promising weekly, but I'll try. So if you have enjoyed the podcast, tell your friends about it, and please do join me next time. Cheerio.